Hello and welcome to the pharmaphorum podcast. I'm your host, Jonah Comstock. Last fall, Japan-based global pharmaceutical company Takeda made a $300 million bet on plasma-derived therapies, investing in a new plant in Belgium focused on creating these single-source biologics. These therapies, a major area of focus for Takeda, present new hope for people with rare and complex conditions, but sourcing the plasma to meet demand is not without its challenges. Here to talk to me about plasma-derived therapies, why they matter, and how the systems around them need to evolve, is Dr. Kristina Allikmets, Senior Vice President and Head of R&D for Takeda's plasma-derived therapies business. Welcome to the show, Kristina.
Hello, Jonah. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So tell me a little bit about yourself just to start, and your background and how you got involved in the Takeda PDT business.
That's quite a long story to tell, but let me try to make it shorter and more concise here. So I've been quite a while around. I started my career as a physician, and frankly, I always wanted to become a physician. So this was where it all got started. I trained in cardiology, and I practiced medicine for about 15 years after I got my MD from medical school. But at some point in my career, I learned about the pharma industry and joined a pharma company that later was acquired by Takeda, and started what now is already 18 years of career in pharma industry and drug development in the R&D part. It's been a fascinating journey, and I've been privileged to work with very different products and very different modalities as well, different therapy areas. But I've been really excited to have the chance to work now with plasma products for the last 3 years. So it's been a journey that landed me here with plasma, but plasma products is a very special area of work for pharma industry and for R&D part as well. It's been a very exciting product category to be engaged with.
So tell me a little bit about that. I honestly was not super familiar with plasma-derived therapies. I have donated plasma myself, so I know a little bit about that side of it. And I've heard of some of these drugs, but as a category, I'm pretty new to this. So I'd love if you could sort of lay it out for me a little bit. How long have we as an industry, been dabbling in this space, and what does it look like these days?
Well, firstly, Jonah, I'm so pleased to hear that you have been donating plasma. Thank you for that, and thank you for being alert to the need, so to put, because plasma products, what really makes them so unique is that there's kind of a human being on both ends of the spectrum. Of course, as pharma industry, we always work with our patient in mind. Everything we do is really needed for serving the need of our patients and making sure we enable therapies for the different conditions our patients suffer from. But for plasma therapies, it's in particular special because we start also from humans. In order to collect plasma, individual donations are needed. So the fact that donations determine how much we are able to manufacture the therapies. It's a dynamics on this particular market that makes plasma products also very special. It's demand really been higher than we're able to currently manufacture for our patients. Now, you asked what makes it so special. So if you think of human plasma, if I kind of try to just start from the basics, so to speak, the human plasma, about half of human plasma is this yellowish liquid that remains when we take all the cells away, the red blood cells, the white blood cells, the platelets. What remains is human plasma. And this is the starting material from which the different proteins, the therapies, are manufactured. The process is very complex, takes close to a year to really come from the starting material to having a therapy ready for the patients. And those therapies are needed for treatment of diseases where the patients either lack certain plasma proteins, meaning their bodies are not manufacturing these proteins naturally. They are, as we say, immune deficient. And for those patients, manufacturing the missing proteins from collected human plasma gives a chance to have a much better life, to control the disease and enable them to lead a near normal life. There's also another part of the plasma-derived proteins that are needed for certain coagulation diseases, diseases that are showing up as coagulation disorders and can be controlled with certain proteins we manufacture from plasma. So the uniqueness really of these products are about the starting material, the way they're manufactured, and also the diseases that are treated with plasma products.
So how long has this been a focus area for Takeda, and as you kind of have gotten into it, what are some of the challenges, and how are you responding to them? I know we sort of mentioned some challenges already, but how do you build a business model around that kind of two-sided market that relies on donations?
Yeah. You have a really good point about how long. It's interesting, but those products have been used for therapies for close to 100 years, actually. Not quite, but close to. And about 80 years of that history, Takeda, through the legacy companies, has been involved as well. So maybe one thing I didn't mention earlier, and an interesting starting point here, the reason we still do manufacture therapies from plasma today, even though technology has advanced so much, as strange as it is, but we're still not able to manufacture all of those proteins in the laboratories with recombinant technologies or other ways. So we're still bound to collect them from the human plasma. That there are no other ways of supplying these medications for patients. So there's another angle of uniqueness. And we as Takeda, the company, as I said, 80 years about, it all started with a legacy company that was called Immuno back in the day in Austria, in Vienna area. And it has evolved through several iterations through different companies that have taken this portfolio forward. And when Takeda acquired company Shire a number of years back, in 2019, Takeda started then this separate business unit where we brought together a business unit from vein-to-vein point of view, meaning the manufacturing, the R&D part, the commercial part, to handle the portfolio of plasma products in a most professional manner.
Yeah. So can we talk a little bit more about the use cases here? What are some kind of examples of the disease areas where these therapies are helping out, and why is it that they're kind of the main best option or only option, or traditional therapies aren't working? Help me understand that side of it too a little bit.
Yes, I'd be happy to try. So maybe for starting, what is it we get from plasma? When I mentioned that plasma started to be used for therapy about 100 years ago, it actually all started with albumin. So albumin is one of the products, a protein that we get from plasma. And it started to be used in intensive care therapy and for patients who had big blood loss, for example, in surgical situations or trauma situations. So that was the first protein that actually was derived from plasma. The second and really important part of what we get from plasma is immunoglobulins. Human body manufactures those immunoglobulins that protect us against different infections. And a healthy individual always has a healthy supply of those immunoglobulins. That's why we stay healthy, so to speak. But as I mentioned very early, there are patients who suffer from immune deficiencies. And a big area of that's a very complex category. Immune deficiency can be caused by different things. But there are a number of patients who have so-called primary immunodeficiency, meaning they are born with a genetic defect. Could be multitude of genetic causes for why a patient has the immunodeficiency. But that can be helped if infused immunoglobulins that are manufactured from healthy plasma. So again, the reason why this cannot be really artificially manufactured is that human plasma is so complex and the composition of these immunoglobulins is so multifaceted. We say polyclonal, which actually means that they come in very different kinds, those immunoglobulins. And it's really today still not feasible to have a laboratory manufactured therapy that would give the same kind of protection to the patient that immunoglobulins from human plasma can. Another big area of therapies that we get from plasma, and those are coagulation factors. And coagulation disorders can be treated with those therapies. Again, really important because those are, again, proteins that we do not currently manufacture in laboratory, that are not made recombinantly. Science is advancing a lot as we speak. One of the disease areas that I'm sure everybody has heard about, hemophilia, a disease that is a coagulation disorder, leads to bleedings and has a big impact on patients' quality of life. Hemophilia today has alternative therapy options that are actually non-plasma options. So medicine has advanced, and there are still patients, some patients in hemophilia field who depend on plasma therapies, but currently there are more options available. We still have several coagulation disorders, though, where there are no other options, and we depend entirely providing these patients with plasma-derived medicine.
So let's talk a little bit about the supply chain. I mean, you have this added difficulty, right? Not only is your supply limited by the donors, but then you have to keep the plasma in a viable form from the point of donation to the manufacturing that you do to the eventual patient. Is that a complex undertaking in itself?
That is a complex undertaking. You're absolutely right. Takeda, plasma could be sourced two different ways. One is the plasma donation that healthy individuals can do in plasma donation centers. And this is where you mentioned in the very beginning that you have personal experience, how this is done and how it happens. So this is one way of sourcing plasma. That's where the biggest amount of source plasma for the manufacturing of therapies comes from. Plasma could also be, so to speak, a byproduct of blood donations. And when whole blood donations are collected by blood banks, the plasma part of this donation could also be used for plasma therapy manufacturing. But most of Takeda's plasma comes from our own network of plasma collection centers, the BioLife centers that function across the United States and in 3 European countries as well. BioLife centers, Takeda has more than 200 centers across the regions that I mentioned. And those centers are dedicated to serving donors who are willing to donate plasma the best possible way so that the plasma donation becomes a good experience for the donor. But we also have the supply that we definitely depend on to be able to manufacture therapies for our patients. So once collected, the plasma will be frozen and then transported to further work to our manufacturing facilities. And we have 8 different manufacturing facilities that work on the plasma products, which in end result gives us more than 20 different therapies that Takeda has on market for plasma.
And what's the donation experience like, and how do you incentivize people to do it?
Well, should we turn this question around and ask for your impressions from that experience, actually, Jonah?
Well, see, I'm trying to make sure I don't mix up my plasma with platelets because I've done both. And I remember one of them was a very much longer process than a regular blood donation.
That's correct. And you are spot on. I think this is the plasma donation you have in mind. So for plasma donation, the donor would go to the plasma collection center where there are the specific machines available and personnel who is trained and dedicated to this type of work. The first visit will always take a bit longer because there's process to go through. And one of our key goals is really to ensure that the donors are safe and know exactly that the process is done the good way. And from that point onwards, then the donation will ensure, and it will take about an hour for the normal plasma donation. Now, from R&D point of view, what is important for us is that once this plasma is collected, we need to really ensure that we maximize the value of that plasma. So we in R&D, we have different departments in R&D, and that includes also the departments for scientific research and understanding better how the plasma proteins can be used for different therapies. And we have people who are experts in designing clinical programs and investigating the effect of plasma therapies on certain disease conditions or separate patient populations. So from the long process of how donated plasma becomes a therapy, a big chunk of that period is really where R&D work is critically important. And that's what I'm responsible for in our business unit, and the team of experts and scientists in plasma R&D are working with.
So the R&D, the innovation is happening in multiple areas, right? It's happening in sort of, as you said, how to make the most of the plasma and use it efficiently. Also, different therapeutic use cases, right? New use cases. And then, is there work happening on synthetic plasma, or are we just too far away from that?
There is work happening, definitely. We are too far from this to become a mainstream therapeutic too soon, but I'm very careful to put out any timelines here, because technology and science has a way of marching forward, and sometimes innovation comes really, really quickly, bounds and leaps. And of course, everything that benefits our patients, we are eagerly waiting for those innovations. But we do have our own hands full as well. You mentioned that looking into different patient populations and testing and providing clinical evidence for our products is one part of that innovation. But for plasma products, there's another angle why those products are so special. And it's not only the protein, but to administer that protein. There's a big component of technology around it, because if we envision it, it's a rather big amount of viscous liquid to be administered. It is either intravenously to the patient, or we have products that can be administered subcutaneously. But for that, there is tubing, needle sets, there are pumps, there's all kinds of support around the administration as such. And so for us, one angle of innovation that we are very dedicated to pursue is really to improve that patient experience. Because if you imagine a patient who administers the product at home, it's not only the needle stick and to be able to administer the product, it would be subcutaneously at home. But they would need to plug together all the tubes, get the product out of the vial, get the pump working, because the infusion will take time because it's a big amount. So all of this logistics, it's complicated. And we are fully dedicated to making patients' lives easier in the future. So the patient experience, improving the patient experience, it's one of the key goals for us, and really something we aspire to do.
And what does that involve? Do you have panels where you hear from patients? How are you kind of investing in the patient experience?
Yeah, excellent question, because it's so easy to assume we know what the patients need, but that, of course, isn't at all correct way of doing it. We definitely want to hear from our patients. We do it different ways. It could be the patient organizations who represent patients with certain conditions. We have long-standing and very valued relationships with a number of patient organizations. We do talk to individual patients. We also listen to patient advisory boards. We bring together groups of patients and hear their voices about where the need actually is and what is the biggest burden for them. And I'm using the word disease burden here because those diseases we treat mostly, or plasma therapies are used to treat patients with either rare disease or complex chronic conditions. And those therapies, in majority of cases, are lifelong. It's not a one-time treatment to cure a patient. It's a chronic condition that the patient will manage through their life, and plasma therapy will be used in that course. So in that context, the burden of disease is extremely important, and improving the technical side around the administration, improving that experience with each administration is crucially important for our patients. We'll give you an example. I mentioned there are multiple steps before the patient can use the needle, and actually before the needle stick can happen and infusion starts, there are multiple steps with this tubing, needle sets, pump to be connected, the vials with the medication. And we have recently developed a technical help device that the patients can use that reduces the number of steps by about half even. And that really helps them to make this process more smooth, saves their time, makes the experience better. So this is the type of innovation that we really want to bring forward to our patients. This device is currently under the review from regulators, and we're hoping to hear back from regulators very soon and get it to our patients quickly.
What else is sort of in the works or on the horizon that you're excited about from an innovation perspective?
I'm very excited to see the digital support system evolve. There's so much been made around the digital approaches to how to help the patients to own their life or take back their life in that context. The support system, the kind of ease of directing them through the different steps of administration, the connections to other patients, connections to healthcare providers, all of that has evolved so much over the past years. I think you would agree that the COVID pandemic time gave this area a push to develop in leaps and bounds, and really virtual healthcare became more of a norm than it ever had been. So for our patients as well, this digital innovation and making sure that we have the best kind of ecosystem around the therapy administration is one of our goals for innovation, for developing. Also, what we are currently in Takeda and in our plasma R&D very excited about is that we ran a study program in neuroimmunology, looking into an indication where plasma therapies bring value to patients. And these results have read out. We are under the review with the regulators again and hope to bring therapies to the patients suffering from those neuroimmunologic diseases, one of the very important area where plasma products are used. So those are the kinds of innovation we are currently most invested in, but a lot of work ongoing and hopefully in the future being able to even better serve our patients.
Is there anything else we haven't talked about that you think is important to discuss or to let people know about the work you're doing?
So maybe just to mention here that what we are really proud of and what I want to emphasize is that we bring to our patients the most diverse portfolio of different plasma products. And why I'm mentioning that is we have different formulations, different concentrations, so on and so forth. And it is actually important because all patients have different needs. The patient's individual needs differ, their lifestyle differs, whether they prefer home or hospital administration differs. All of that tends to differ from patient to patient, and we really are committed to serve our patients, meet them where their needs are. So creating that ecosystem that supports the patients, reimagining that ecosystem to enable also technology solutions and digital solutions to be part of that ecosystem. This is how we see innovation going. And we are fully committed to our patients also with the situations where there's not enough plasma to allow for every patient to be served. We're firmly committed to continue serving our patients through the course of their therapy. So meaning it's a chronic condition, and we're always carefully prioritizing, ensuring that as we evolve and develop into new areas and new indications, we're never leaving our patients behind. We are always ensuring that the patient's needs are covered to ensure they have the therapy available for them.
And how do you do that when you have a shortage? I mean, is it about, you said prioritizing? Is there a degree to which it's possible to stockpile? Like, how do you manage that and avoid a situation where a person who needs this therapy isn't able to access it?
Yes, this is a process that is carefully managed and controlled, the supply chain and allocation management. So we are following very carefully the patient populations that we serve, and when the new indications open up or new countries that we can provide the medicine for. So this is something that the business unit that I mentioned earlier, we work in Takeda with the plasma-derived therapies business unit, has people dedicated to, and they're much better to talk about this specific process than I would be here. But
right, of course, because R&D is your focus.
Yeah, rest assured, we have fully eyes on that, and this is something we are very, very good at as well. I would say to manage that supply and demand match in a way.
How do you see this space evolving in the next 5 or 10 years?
I'm very excited to see that not only Takeda, but also the other companies that work with plasma products are growing the plasma product manufacturing. And this is really exciting because as we started from, there still is more demand that we're currently able to meet, which means more patients can be treated, more help can be out there for them. So I'm so excited to see that growth continuing. I'm, of course, excited that Takeda is such an important part of that area, and we're really doing our utmost here to be part of this growth. In the next years, what I would see happening is that we're getting better at what I used the words earlier, to offer to the patients really a complex system of care, not only the therapy, but this integrated care that the patient deserves to have, meaning that their needs are covered on multiple fronts, not only by the protein that is treating the disease immediately, but also the care system around that makes their life easier, that allows the patient to take back their life and not be determined by how much the disease allows to live a life.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, Kristina. This has been super interesting. One of the things I love about covering pharma is that there are so many little areas. I mean, not little, but, particular specific areas to learn about. And it's been great to have you on and learn a little bit about the work that you do at Takeda around plasma-derived therapies.
Jonah, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for your questions and for your interest in this really important area. Thank you.
That concludes this episode of the pharmaphorum podcast. You can find more information about this episode, including a download link and information about other installments in the series at pharmaphorum.com/podcast. The pharmaphorum podcast is also available on iTunes, Spotify, Acast, Stitcher, and Podme, where you can find and subscribe by searching for pharmaphorum. And don't forget to visit our website, where you can sign up for daily news and analysis bulletins, and to follow us on Twitter at pharmaphorum. Thanks for listening.